So in this video lecture, we will be starting with a new topic of non-destructive testing. Now, as the name itself suggests, it's non-destructive testing, which means that we are going to test our concrete without actually destroying it. Now, in our previous topics that we had studied, they were all about testing of concrete, but in that we were putting our concrete under the compression testing machine and it used to get destroyed. But in this case, we are trying to find the strength of the concrete, or we are trying to estimate the strength of the concrete without or partially destroying it, not complete destruction of our material. So the science of estimating strength of concrete without complete destruction or with partial destruction of material is called as non-destructive testing. Non-destructive testing methods are used for, so what are the various uses of that? First, determination of strength of hardened concrete without destroying it, which is a major advantage of non-destructive testing. Second is to understand how much, or to investigate the crack depths. So in the concrete, when there are cracks propagating through the body of the concrete, we sometimes from outside it is very much difficult to understand that how much deep that crack has gone, and that is very important part as far as the durability is concerned, because more the crack inhibits the concrete, bad it is for the steel which is there, especially if it is the RCC. So we can find the cracks as well using non-destructive techniques. Third is micro cracks. So if micro cracks are formed within the body of the concrete, now we had seen in my few previous video lectures, I had already told that how micro cracks are formed at the transition at the junction of the aggregate and the cement paste, right? So we can investigate those micro cracks as well using NDT, or this non-destructive testing short form is NDT. I'll just write here NDT, so it's also called as NDT. Progressive deterioration. So we can understand that whether our concrete is degrading in its strength, or what kind of flaws are there inside the body of the concrete. All those can be found out. Non-destructive tests are simple to perform, but the analysis of data is very important in this, and it needs a special expertise. So there are separate engineers who are trained into non-destructive testing, and this particular field is a very budding field, and it's a rising field in civil engineering. I mean, it's there for many years, but constant research is being made into this, and many of students might get interested into pursuing this particular stream. What we will be studying in non-destructive testing is, first is we will be studying the rebound test, second penetration and pull techniques, and the third dynamic or vibration test, which are very important. Let us start with the rebound test. So for rebound test, the equipment that we use is Schmidt's rebound hammer, and this is how it looks. So we'll just understand what are the various parts. First part, which is very important, is the plunger. This is called as a plunger. It is placed on the concrete whose strength we have to estimate. Then we attach to that plunger is a spring, and then we have a mass which is on top of that spring. Then this is the rider. Rider is going to slide on this scale, and we'll see what the purpose of that rider is later on. That's it. That is the major parts of Schmidt's rebound hammer, and there is a tubular housing, so which encompasses all those plunger and spring and everything. So let us see how it works. So it consists of a spring control hammer that slides on a plunger within a tubular housing. So this is a plunger, this blue thing, light blue, that is the plunger, and this is a tubular housing. So this is what tubular housing, right? And this is our plunger. This is the concrete whose strength has to be estimated. This is the mass which is resting on the spring. This red thing that you see, it is the rider, and this is the scale, graduated scale. Okay, so what exactly happens is, for testing of the concrete, this tubular housing we have to push. Okay, so if you push that tubular housing, what will happen? Obviously the spring will get elongated. Okay, and there is a button here, a button sort of thing. So when the plunger you push it from this, like, yeah, from here you apply the force. So what you are essentially doing is you are pushing the plunger, but plunger won't move because here is the concrete. So this tubular housing will come down, and then it will come down like this. And when you release that button, what happens is, see, this mass is there, this mass, it will suddenly strike on that plunger because of that retracted spring. So when that retracted spring is released, that mass will strike on the plunger. The force from this mass will travel through the plunger into the body of concrete, and from the body of concrete it will give it a rebound back. So whatever elasticity of concrete would be there, because of that the body of concrete will give a rebound or a reaction back to the plunger, and that reaction will travel through the plunger to the mass, and that mass will move ahead. That mass will again return back. Okay, so what exactly happened is, first when you released that spring, this mass came down very rapidly. Because of that mass, when it came down rapidly, it gave a force to this plunger. Through the plunger, the force traveled to concrete. When it reached concrete, the concrete gave a reaction back, and because of the elasticity of the concrete, whatever reaction it can give, it gave back. That reaction traveled through the plunger, and it again went back to the mass, and mass went back ahead. Okay. Now when this thing happens, when the mass goes up, now this is, I have only shown partly how it has gone up, but it will go further up and it will take this rider along with it. Okay, so the total animation would be like this. So when it moves up, when this mass moves up, it does not move only till here, it moves up above and it takes the rider along with it. So wherever this rider rests on this graduated scale, that is going to give you the rebound number. So now when the assembly is again brought to a neutral point, that is, this is how the assembly was in the beginning stage, right? But now the rider has attained a new position because of this mass, because the mass displaced it, and this rider on the graduated scale will give you the rebound number. So the distance traveled by the mass is called the rebound number. It is indicated by the rider moving along a graduated scale. So how do we correlate that rebound number and our compressive strength? So there is a graph that is given to us, and if we see on this graph, on y-axis we have compressive strength, on x-axis we have rebound number, and this test can be performed either vertically, it can be performed horizontally, or it can be performed at any angle for that matter, and at any angle, at every angle you will get a different rebound number. So this particular chart is calibrated for two angles basically. First is that hammer, when it is held vertically down like this, This is vertical down, hammer position. And second, when hammer is held vertically up, so like if there is a concrete surface here up, and this is how your rebound hammer is there, let's say. So this is how you have held it upwards. And third is hammer held horizontal. So if you are holding your hammer horizontal, it will be like this. So 3 positions are given in total. Along with that, it has also given 2 types of surfaces: wet surface and dry surface. So wet surface and dry surface is basically the type of surface on which we are testing our concrete, whether it is a dry surface completely or whether it is a wet surface, and that will also change, or that will also affect your rebound number. So when hammer is vertically down, this line and this line will tell you, will give you that is basically your rebound number. And when hammer is held vertically up, it is this line and this line. So let's say if you are getting a rebound value of 20 and the surface is wet surface and the hammer was held vertically down, so what you can correspond to it, the compressive strength would be estimated around 20 megapascals. So this is how a Schmidt's rebound hammer is used. And the strength that it gives is approximate strength, it is not accurate strength. For further, you can always read MS Shetty in more detail. So each hammer will vary considerably in performance and needs calibration for use on concrete made with aggregates from specific source. The test can be conducted horizontally, vertically, upwards, or on any intermediate angle, so as I told you. But for that intermediate angle, you should know, or you should have this table. You should know what value of rebound hammer would give what compressive strength. So that table should be with you. At each angle, the rebound number will be different for same concrete and will require separate calibration or correction chart. Limitations. Although rebound hammer provides a quick, inexpensive means of checking uniformity of concrete, it has serious limitations and thus these must be recognized. The results are affected by, first is smoothness of surface under test. So whether the surface which we are testing, whether it is smooth or if it is rough, because if it is smooth, then there will be a better load transfer from the plunger to your concrete. If it is rough, then that roughness would be affected first, and then it would go inside the body of the concrete. Age of specimen. So depending on age of specimen, we know that concrete gains strength as it ages. So again, depending on age of specimen, we will get different rebound numbers. Surface and internal moisture condition of the concrete. So we have seen even in those graphs how wet surface and dry surface have different rebound numbers. Type of coarse aggregate. So the type of coarse aggregate that we use corresponds to a lot of strength, a lot of compressive strength inside the concrete. More hard are the aggregates, more would be the compressive strength basically. So it more generally the rebound number also would be different. Then the type of cement used, we have different types of cements, right? 33, 43, 53 grade, and even in that we have OPC, PPC, pozzolana and everything, rapid hardening cement and all. So each of them will give a different rebound number. Carbonation of concrete surface. So carbonation is a term that you must have not heard before this. It is basically the carbon dioxide in our air and the water in our concrete. When they mix together, they form carbonic acid. That carbonic acid reacts with calcium hydroxide inside the concrete and it forms calcium carbonate. So basically what happens is when the calcium hydroxide gets depleted, since it is getting reacted with carbonic acid, when that particular calcium hydroxide gets depleted, the pH value decreases rapidly, and when the pH value decreases rapidly, there is a passive layer of protection around your reinforcement. So if this is reinforcement, there is a passive layer of protection around it, and that layer of protection is good when the pH is high. But when the pH drops, for example in this case when CaOH plus calcium hydroxide is depleting and it is reducing the pH of the concrete, the reinforcement starts corroding and that passive layer goes away. So when that passive layer goes away, the reinforcement starts corroding, and therefore that carbonation is something that should be avoided. And naturally if the steel is getting corroded, then the entire strength of the concrete will also be affected because of that, and in the same way the rebound number will also be affected. So this was it about the limitations of Schmidt's rebound hammer. In the next lecture we will be studying few more non-destructive tests. Till then, take care. Thank you.